East of the ever-imposing Lake Wulfseh, the roughly 50,000 square kilometre Wyllaav region stretches from the shores of the lake to the Laave Mountains further eastward. It is a vast and wild land, covered in a thick black oak forest with very few patches of grassland dotted between. Wyllaav remains almost completely uninhabited into the modern day, and was delegated as a national park by Queen Margot in Years of the Fire 1810. Even under the destructive rule of the þaug party, a special commission called the Wyllaav Protection Committee was set up to administrate and protect the area, which, although associated with the NSPFW, still exists today under the Ministry of the Environment. However, nowadays, Wyllaav National Park is often avoided outside of the summer months due to its association with the mystery and insatiable hunger of the forest that covers it. Signs border the roads and trails that lead into its jaws, reminding travellers to keep their bags fixed to them tightly, ensure contact with the outside world, and that it is officially closed off to the public from the 1st of September until the 1st of May. Tales originating from as far back as pre-Fayish societies tell of dark, prowling beasts that stalk and hunt any who enter its territory, found on the various standing stones and monoliths around the nation. There are no names given to these entities, simply nameless creatures that exist only in the darkest corners of our imagination and reality. Some scriptures also note the region as being the home of the deity Arann herself, who protects the sprawling wildlife from outsider harm. Nevertheless, no single tale of the Wyllaav National Park is more infamous than that of the case of Wyllaav 1974. This case has remained unsolved even after 126 years since it has happened. It involves a group of 3 college students, fairly experienced in bushcraft and camping, who went into the southern section of Wyllaav for a mid-autumn camping trip. However, unbeknownst to them or their families, they would never be seen again. As an annual trip, the group of friends would decide on a location to camp for over usually the weekend, towards the end of summer going into autumn. Their trip was delayed on this particular year due to one of them, Wulfseh, having to practice for his flute grading a month prior. The 3 had learned from their camps in Years of the Fire 1972 and 1973, which were less prepared for, and so took great detail in planning every aspect of the trip, from transport to provisions to even entertainment. The only girl in the group, Caela, even decided to take her diary for the group's use to document their travels as well as her new camera, which she ended up forgetting upon leaving, meaning that no photographic evidence could be taken, and they would only leave behind a physical and written record. On Friday the 11th of October, Years of the Fire 1974, the group consisting of Coven Widdick, Caela Greer and Wulfseh Volknir set off from their hometown of Lillgarben. Their mode of transport was Coven's mother, Melmë's personal car, who agreed to lend it to Coven for the weekend. It was a notably unique car, being dark green in colour and a fairly old 1961 Fairhavdrick Model 3, and it also being one of the only owned Model 3 vehicles within a 2,000 square kilometre area of the town of Lillgarben. The diary of Caela was found within the forest with an entry on Friday the 11th stating,
"We are fully prepared to set off later this afternoon. All items on the list have been checked off and the car is fueled for a full week's worth of driving," Coven says.
Thus showing their competence and preparation for their journey. At 12:30 p.m, the group drove up the East Wulfseh Coastal Road, EWCR, for approximately 400 kilometres, until they turned east to follow a dirt path that led 210 kilometres away from the coast of Lake Wulfseh. Their route to the site was planned beforehand, noting that they would reach a place to park by around 6 in the afternoon. Their last sighting would be noted by another driver coming south down the EWCR, though it is unknown at what time. With no word from any of the campers by Monday the 14th, both Melmë Widdick and Caela's mother, Pavis Greer, reported their children missing at 7:31 p.m. and 9:15 p.m. respectively. The reports were filed and a team was assembled by the local Lillgarben Constabulary to begin a search early in the morning of the following day. A team of 9 investigators and 38 volunteers who knew the 3 personally set out to search the forest, with a zone of 100 square kilometers set out from the location of the car. The group's car was found on the 15th of October, reversed into the tree line just off the edge of a lay-by on the dirt road. Miraculously, there was only minor external damage to its boot, with a dent where it hit into the tree, its back license plate fully removed and found 2 meters to the left of the car, and scrapes on the back and passenger doors, which are unexplained. As well as this, all of the car doors were locked. On the night of the 15th, the body of Covan Widdick was found just 124 meters into the woods from the Model 3. He was found face down in a ditch, slightly covered with dead leaves and twigs, implying that someone attempted to cover his body. He was lying completely flat, with his palms facing upwards, wearing an orange jumper and working trousers and socks, but no shoes, which were found laid neatly together alongside his glasses, 5 meters in front of his body. The post-mortem examination reported,
bruises covered his legs, and there were deep gashes on the reverse of his neck and back. His nose was broken, and he had an eye missing which was not found. His vocal cords were extremely damaged, most likely due to excessive overuse. His bottom 5 ribs were all broken in a way that seemed to be from an incredibly intense force. His cause of death is most likely due to starvation.
Covan's strange state that he was found in shocked the search team and was reported by the aeltè print the following day, which attracted statewide interest into the case. It is interesting that Covan's report claims he died from starvation, although the injuries on his body were claimed to have been inflicted prior to his death, with the exception of his missing eye. Therefore, it is highly likely that Covan was attacked by someone or something before he died. The search team's lack of results on the first day did not lead to high spirits and led to a reduction in volunteers by 5 people. A member who left reported to the paper,
"It's been one night and we've covered around 100 square kilometres. We've found all but scraps of them, and if it were up to me, it would probably be easier to see them. The trees had snatched them and eaten them all."
The second day of the search resulted in the discovery of the group's tent, found just 25 meters outside of the initial search zone, which was expanded on this day by a further 100 square kilometers. The tent still remained intact, suspiciously far away from the roadside, and also contained all 3 of the personal rucksacks that each member took with them. It seems as if most of the belongings of the campers were packed into their bags, including food and water, with the exception of the 2 survival knives that they took, Caela and Wulfseh's respective jackets, as well as Caela's diary and pen. The tent's door was closed, suggesting that the group all actively left their belongings and the campsite for some reason, as well as feeling the need to document their happenings and protect themselves. This may indicate a potential threat that forced the group to leave in a rush, though they would have had to have the time to close the door behind them. The tent was under various trees, as well as there being a long extinguished fire and some stones around it, presumably used as seating, about a meter from the front of the shelter. No other fireplace remains were found in the searched area, and so it is believed this was the only campsite the group set up in their time alive. One of the volunteer searchers who was later interviewed for a story in the aeltè print noted that their shelter was nearly pristine, as if it was only set up a day ago, and the feeling around it was nothing but moribund. The second report in the national paper led to more intrigue, and all eyes were turned on the local authorities to solve the case sharpish before faith was lost that any had been able to survive. The search continued on for 4 more days without any more leads, until on Sunday the 21st, when something was spotted hanging from a tree, almost 3 kilometers away from where the car was located. At 12 meters off the ground, folded over a tree branch, was Wulfseh's corpse. His condition was a lot worse than Covan's. His arms were reported as being
slashed so finely as if they had been grated and coated in a layer of blood, appearing like a sleeve tattoo. Moreover, all of his ribs were fractured into smithereens, which had flung bone fragments into his lungs, liver, stomach and heart. Both of his eyes were missing, and there was dried blood that had flowed out of his mouth and ears. The right side of his mouth had been cut open, showing his molars and extending into his cheek tissue. All of his fingernails had turned black and were filled with dirt. He had bruising down his front and along his legs. His ankles were both broken. The cause of death is unknown.
The position in which Wulfseh's body was found in was incredibly baffling. In the state that he was in, how he could have climbed up a tree that far is almost impossible. As well as this, his cause of death is unknown, and it was impossible to tell whether or not his injuries were pre- or post-mortem. His jacket was found hanging on the end of the branch he was hung over, and he was dressed moderately, with a shirt, jumper and his pyjama bottoms. He was still wearing his socks and shoes too, connoting that he had planned to settle for the night, but was dragged out of the campsite with the other two. Later in the evening of the 21st, Caela's diary was found in the complete opposite direction of all other evidence, buried under a pyramidal structure of sticks and dirt, 4.3 kilometers northeast of the car. This was the last shred of evidence that was ever found, as the search was officially called off on the 1st of November due to weather conditions making it more and more difficult to traverse the forest. For 126 years, not a single sign of Caela Griath has been found, as if she had simply vanished into thin air. Her family never found a closure, and were donated a sum of 10,000 weir by a combination of private donations and compensation from the Faesh Royal Constabulary.
Her pen and the 2 knives, one of which was hers, has also remained missing. The last entry in her diary is dated to Sunday the 13th of October and says,
We're leaving the tent momentarily. Hopefully the wind does not sweep it away.
It seems the group were completely unaware as to what fate would befall them. The fate of the Wyllaav 3 is just another mystery of the Laave Forest, a tale of how just quickly the woods can swallow you up and eat you whole. Almost every bit of evidence of this case is inconsistent. The car alone is a mix of uncertainties, such as why and how was the back license plate removed? Why was the car reversed into the forest as opposed to being previously parked in the lay-by? The fact that the doors remained locked implies that the group had gotten in the car and moved it from its parking spot, then gotten out and locked it again, which seemingly would be a random decision. Some believe, due to the car's keys being missing alongside Caela, that she is responsible for its crash, and then for some unknown reason left the car and continued on foot, perhaps as a rash decision while under immense stress. Many theories have been proposed as to why they left the tent. Caela's diary entries are incredibly vague towards the end, and she gives no reason as to why they left. Some suggest they left simply to go on a walk, or to explore, or maybe something more sinister. As mentioned, the state of the belongings taken out of the tent suggests they left in a panic as the fire was left to burn out, but they had enough time to close the door fully. Potentially the group was spooked by the wind or an animal, or some suggest it may have been the infamous ghost of the Laave, or perhaps the Huntress, who protects the forest and is often believed to be the embodiment of the deity Jägn. This decision alone to leave their campsite is the defining moment when the campers reach the point of no return. Wulfseh and Coven's deaths are completely unexplainable and strange. Most of their injuries were made from sources that could not have been human, as the coroner had put it, and the meticulous nature of the 2 corpses' positioning implies foul play of some kind. It gives the case an extremely unsettling aura, as if some completely incomprehensible force toyed with the group to drive them insane and then brutally murdered them. Finally, the pyramid structure of sticks that covered Caela's diary is also unsettling, as it is a completely unnatural way to hide it, if that's what was intended, almost ritualistic in some way. Or perhaps whoever placed it there wanted it to be found, and so put it under natural materials in an unnatural way, so that it would be noticed upon close inspection. The most popular theory as to what happened was that the group left to go on a walk in the late afternoon, and managed to get lost as night set in. This sent them into panic, and the 3 ultimately succumbed to the elements. The Eld's found this the most convincing and chose it to be the final explanation to give the public closure. Although this makes the most sense, it doesn't explain the deaths very well, nor does it give a reason for what drove them to leave in such a way, as they were somewhat experienced with camping, and all three of them had their driving licenses, and so whoever did crash the car must have been in a delirious state. There was no other reports of any other people in the region at this time, and the last reported sighting of the group was, as aforementioned, when they had left Lillgarden. This rules out any possibility of them being attacked by another person or persons, unless of course someone was in the area undocumented. Another popular theory is that they were attacked by supernatural and malevolent forces. The unknown capabilities of such an entity would explain the way in which Coven and Wulfseh's bodies were damaged. The three must have been shocked or attacked by some supernatural being, which possibly sent them mad and picked them off one by one. Although never mentioned in the initial police report or in the national paper, it remains common among the people as it aligns with the peculiar evidence. Another idea, proposed somewhat controversially by an article after the search had been called off, was titled "The Murderer Who Vanished into the Woods," which detailed the story of the case and twisted its details to demonize Caela as a murderous teenager who planned to isolate her friends and kill them in cold blood. This was backed up by the tediousness of the deaths and the state of the campsite, as well as the previous car theory aligning with Caela's stealing of the car and purposeful crash to lead away investigators from the idea of foul play, and then running off into the wilderness. A claimed sighting of Caela made its way into the Eldprint in 1990, of a mysterious adult woman seen wandering the streets of Ginwallam, who resembled the appearance of Caela. She was never seen again after this report, possibly running away into the woods once more. However, this theory doesn't make sense with Caela's general reported personality and attitude, as well as any violent tendencies being present in her various diaries. So she is often used by some as a scapegoat for the murder of two young boys. There are also some fringe theories that suggest a form of government involvement or cover-up. They claim this due to apathy from the local authorities, firstly in setting up a team and beginning an official search, which began at 7 AM on the morning following the disappearances being reported. The search also only lasted 17 days, as if they just gave up with the lack of evidence in such a wide search zone. As well as this, the fact it was a fairly high-profile case due to media attention, without any statements from higher-up government officials, leads some to believe that the authorities had found evidence of a supernatural intervention in the group's activities leading to their deaths. Therefore, a cover-up was put in place to hide the fact of any sort of eldritch reason for their untimely deaths. Any time officials involved in the case have been questioned in later years, they have swiftly passed over any comments. For example, the head investigator of the Lillgarden Royal Constabulary, Gion Yelweir, stated that deaths remain a mystery and above all, a tragedy, without any further expansion. Perhaps in time, some light may be shed on this case, either through the proxy of government declassification or happenstance. A group grave was erected for the three in Lillgarden Cemetery in 1975, commemorating them forever and their tragic deaths. It has become the most visited grave in the town, adorned with flowers given in respect by family and friends alike, as well as concerned citizens. Some have treated the deaths of each discovered bodies as separate cases to help explain the situation. However, this is often treated as a logical fallacy in discussing the case. The mystery of Wyllaav 1974 pervades the region and criminal history of Faeymôr, and has led to detectives, both professional and aspiring amateurs alike, into rabbit holes of no return. Independent investigations still continue to this day, but like many other historical events, it will remain forever unsolved. Thank you to all that have watched. This took a long time to record, because I forgot about it most of the time. I also was sick recording this a lot, so yeah, not very good recording voices going on, but yeah.
I really appreciate if you watch the entire way through. This is a expansive world that I am in the process of creating, so if you like it, then stick around because there may be more coming in the future. Thank you very much.